24-year-old Toyah Cordingley drove to the beach about 40 kilometers north of Cairns for a Sunday afternoon walk with her dog. Indy, her beloved German Shepherd Dane mix, bounded excitedly in the back seat as Toyah navigated the winding coastal road. She had made this journey countless times before, finding peace in the rhythm of the ocean and the joy of watching Indy race across the sand. The beach was quiet that afternoon, exactly how Toyah liked it. She parked her car in the familiar lot, grabbed Indy's leash, and stepped onto the sand, her colorful hair catching the golden light of the descending sun. What Toyah didn't know was that she wasn't alone on that secluded beach. Someone else had arrived after a domestic dispute, carrying fruits and a kitchen knife, his mind churning with dark thoughts. Their paths were about to cross in the most horrific way imaginable. When Toyah didn't return that evening, her family raised the alarm. The hours stretched into an agonizing night as her loved ones searched frantically, their calls going unanswered, their worst fears beginning to take shape in the darkness. By morning, those fears would become an unspeakable reality that would haunt a community for 7 years. Before we continue with Toyah's story, I need to ask something important. Cases like this deserve to be heard. They deserve to be remembered. If you believe that every victim's story matters, that justice should never be forgotten, please hit that subscribe button right now. Turn on notifications so you never miss when we honor another life that was taken too soon. And if this story moves you, and I promise you it will, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Together, we make sure these voices are never silenced. Thank you for being here. Now let me tell you about the incredible young woman whose life was stolen on that beach. Toyah Cordingley was described by friends as loving and carefree, who enjoyed adventures and had a vibrant personality that was expressed through her colorful hair. Born on June 14, 1994 in Cairns, Queensland, Toyah was the kind of person who left an impression on everyone she met. Her infectious laughter, her genuine kindness, and her deep compassion for those who couldn't speak for themselves defined her character. She was known for her compassion and care for street animals, and had previously worked in rescue and volunteer work. Her journey into animal welfare began early. For 2 years, from 2014 to 2016, she worked as a kennel attendant at Paws and Claws Refuge and Boarding Center in Port Douglas, fostering countless fur babies and giving abandoned animals a second chance at love. It was more than a job. It was her calling. She was described as gentle, humble, and loving by those who knew her, a young woman who saw the beauty in life's simple moments. At the time of her death, Toyah was working at an organic food store and pharmacy in Cairns. Her colleagues remembered her warmth and dedication, the way she always had time for a kind word or a helping hand. But it was her relationships that truly illuminated her spirit. Her parents, Troy Cordingley and Vanessa Gardner, though separated, remained close and present in her life. They described themselves as a fun, tight-knit family, one that shared adventures, laughter, and an unbreakable bond. Then there was Marco Heidenreich, Toyah's boyfriend of 2 years. They had started dating in January 2016, and their shared love of animals had drawn them together like magnets. Indy, the dog Toyah would walk that fateful day, symbolized everything they cherished: loyalty, unconditional love, and the joy of simple companionship. Meanwhile, 40 kilometers south in Innisfail, another life was unraveling. Rajwinder Singh, a 37-year-old nurse originally from Punjab, India, lived with his wife and 3 young children. To his colleagues at the geriatric hospital where he worked, Singh was competent and professional, a man who spoke 3 languages and seemed dedicated to his patients. But beneath that veneer of normalcy lurked something darker. Singh was described as having a quiet, isolated personality and suffered from depression. Months before the case, co-workers reported that he took several leaves of absence from work without any plausible justification. On that October Sunday, Singh had a heated argument with his wife. Frustrated and angry, he left his home, driving his distinctive blue Alfa Romeo sedan toward Wangetti Beach. He carried with him some fruit and a kitchen knife. What happened next would destroy multiple families and expose the fragility of safety in even the most beautiful places. As the sun began its descent toward the horizon on October 21, 2018, Toyah walked along the isolated stretch of Wangetti Beach with Indy by her side. The beach, nestled between rocky outcrops and dense tropical vegetation, offered the kind of solitude that Toyah treasured. Indy bounded ahead, his large paws leaving prints in the wet sand as the waves rolled in and out. That's when their peaceful afternoon shattered. When Cordingley's dog started barking at Rajwinder Singh, the two argued. What began as Indy's protective instincts escalated into a confrontation. According to later testimony, Justice Crowley suggested an obvious explanation was that Cordingley had stumbled upon Singh engaged in some type of disgraceful, embarrassing activity of a sexual and perverted nature at the secluded beach, prompting a confrontation. Whether Toyah witnessed something inappropriate or simply tried to calm her barking dog, the encounter spiraled horrifically out of control. Unable to control his emotions, Singh attacked and murdered Toyah in a frenzy, stabbing her multiple times with the knife he carried. The convict allegedly stabbed her at least 26 times before cutting her throat. In those final, terrifying moments, Toyah fought for her life on the sand where she had found so much peace. The combination of chest injuries and the cut to her neck almost certainly caused her death, according to the autopsy conducted by Dr. Paul Botterill. When the violence finally ended, Singh buried her body in the sand and tied her dog to a nearby tree before panicking and running away. Indy was found unharmed and tied up to a tree about 800 meters from Toyah's car. The loyal companion had been secured tightly, unable to protect his beloved owner or alert anyone to the horror that had unfolded. As night fell over Wangetti Beach, Indy waited in the darkness, and Toyah's family began to realize something was terribly wrong. When Toyah failed to come home that evening, panic set in. Marco tried her phone repeatedly. No answer. Her parents drove to her apartment, then retraced routes she might have taken. By midnight, they knew. They called the police, and a massive search operation began in the pre-dawn hours. On the morning of October 22, 2018, family and friends of missing 24-year-old Toyah Cordingley would scour the area around Wangetti Beach. Troy Cordingley, Toyah's father, refused to wait for daylight. He drove through the dark hours to Wangetti Beach, his heart pounding with dread. As the first light of dawn illuminated the sand dunes, Troy made a discovery that would haunt him forever. Her body was found about 800 meters from her car, while her dog was unharmed and tied up to a tree. Toyah was discovered by her father half buried in sand dunes at Wangetti Beach, north of Cairns. The image of finding his only child, partially concealed in the sand, suffering from visible and violent injuries, would burn into Troy's mind. Her father, Troy, who discovered his only child's body, described years of trauma, including PTSD, insomnia, flashbacks, and crippling anxiety. Police claimed Cordingley had died after a personal and intimate attack. The brutality of the crime scene shocked even experienced detectives. This wasn't a random act of violence. The ferocity suggested rage, panic, or both. Queensland Police Inspector Sonia Smith later described the case as one of the largest and most complex in Far North history. As news spread through Cairns and the surrounding communities, shock gave way to profound grief. About 350 people packed a small chapel in the Cairns suburb of Manunda for her funeral. Family friend David County officiated the service, telling those gathered to remember how she lived, not how she died. Today is not a day to be angry. Today's not a day to hate. Today's a day to love and reflect on how Toyah impacted our lives. But beneath the grief simmered anger and a desperate need for answers. Who could have done this to someone so beloved? The investigation faced immediate challenges. The remote location meant few witnesses. The beach's shifting sands had already begun obscuring evidence. Detectives worked around the clock, interviewing locals, examining CCTV footage from nearby highways, and collecting DNA samples. Within days, investigators began piecing together a timeline. They traced the movements of Toyah's phone using cellular tower data, creating a digital map of her final hours. That's when they noticed something peculiar. Police identified Singh as a suspect within 3 weeks of the murder after matching the movements of his blue Alfa Romeo to the path of Cordingley's phone. The distinctive vehicle had been near Wangetti Beach at the exact time Toyah's phone stopped transmitting, and then both the car and phone had traveled together away from the beach. But when detectives went to question Rajwinder Singh, they discovered something that would turn a murder investigation into an international manhunt. He was gone. Singh booked a one-way flight back to India the same day, telling his wife he would be gone for a couple of days. The morning after Toyah's body was discovered, as Toyah Cordingley was identifying his daughter's remains and Marco Heidenreich was collapsing in grief, Rajwinder Singh walked into a travel agency and purchased a ticket to New Delhi. He told a travel agent his grandfather was very sick before leaving his family behind. He told his wife he'd return in a few days. He hugged his 3 young children goodbye and drove to the airport. His wife and 3 young children, who depended on him financially, did not hear from him for more than 4 years and ultimately lost their home. The family he abandoned would become collateral damage in a coward's escape from justice. When detectives arrived at Singh's Innisfail home, they found his wife confused and devastated. Her husband had mentioned nothing about any urgent family emergency beforehand. The timing of his departure, mere hours after Toyah's body was found, immediately elevated him from person of interest to prime suspect. Forensic evidence soon confirmed the worst. DNA found on a stick on top of sand covering Toyah's body was 3.7 billion times more likely to belong to Singh. Even more damning, DNA found under her fingernails almost perfectly matched Singh. Toyah had fought her attacker, scraping his skin beneath her nails in those desperate final moments. She had, unknowingly, marked her killer, but the evidence that should have led to a swift arrest instead revealed a frustrating reality. Singh had fled to India, a country with which Australia had no formal extradition treaty at the time. In March 2021, the Australian federal government approved an extradition warrant, but locating Singh in a country of 1.4 billion people proved nearly impossible. Cordingley's death triggered an outpouring of grief across Far North Queensland, where hundreds marched against violence towards women and vehicles displayed bumper stickers calling for justice. The community refused to let Toyah be forgotten. Her case became a symbol of the vulnerability women face, even in places that should be safe. Toyah had simply wanted to walk her dog on a beautiful afternoon. That basic freedom had cost her everything. Months turned into years. Singh seemed to have vanished into the vastness of India. Detectives believed he was hiding in the northern Punjab region, likely with religious communities that might not know his true identity. As anniversaries of Toyah's death came and went, her family's hope for justice began to fade. The pain of her absence only deepened with time. By 2022, 4 years had passed since Toyah's murder. Her father, Troy, described years of trauma, including PTSD, insomnia, flashbacks, and crippling anxiety. Ask anyone who knew Toyah, and they will tell you what a kind, caring person she was. As a consequence of her passing, I will never have grandchildren. Everything reminds me of her, and the pain is unbearable. For Vanessa Gardner, Toyah's mother, every family gathering became a painful reminder of what was stolen from them. Every time there is a family occasion of significance, there is always the so-called elephant in the room, that being Toyah is not there anymore. Birthdays, holidays, weddings, moments that should bring joy were now tinged with the absence of Toyah's laughter, her vibrant personality, her colorful hair catching the light. Marco Heidenreich, the boyfriend who had shared 2 beautiful years with Toyah, found himself unable to move forward. The future they had planned together, travel, more rescued animals, perhaps marriage, had been erased in minutes of senseless violence. The injustice of an unsolved case compounded the grief. Not only was Toyah gone, but her killer remained free, living his life somewhere in India, while those who loved her remained trapped in trauma. The investigation, despite the dedication of detectives, seemed to have hit an insurmountable wall. Singh had successfully disappeared. Tips from India led nowhere. The extradition process moved at a glacial pace through diplomatic channels. Queensland Police Inspector Sonia Smith said the murder had left a deep scar on the Far North Queensland community. For Toyah's family, the darkest moments came when they contemplated the possibility that Singh might never face justice. They imagined him living freely in Punjab, perhaps starting a new life under a different name, while they lived with the agony of Toyah's absence every single day. The scales of justice seemed permanently tilted in favor of a murderer who had fled rather than face what he'd done. The case began to fade from national headlines. Other tragedies captured public attention. But for those who loved Toyah, time did not heal. It only clarified the magnitude of their loss and the injustice of an unpunished crime. Then, in October 2022, on the 4th anniversary of Toyah's murder, Queensland authorities made an unprecedented decision. By November 3, 2022, the Queensland government announced the largest reward in the state's history for Singh's location and arrest, a $1 million payout. The announcement sent shockwaves through both Australia and India. It was an extraordinary sum, a clear message that Toyah's life mattered and that justice would be pursued no matter how long it took or how far the perpetrator had fled. The reward galvanized attention. News of the $1 million bounty spread across international media. Suddenly, people in India who might have encountered Singh began to pay attention. Anonymous tips started flowing to Queensland police and to authorities in India. Someone, somewhere, knew where Rajwinder Singh was hiding. Within weeks, investigators received crucial intelligence. Singh had been living with a religious group in India, and in November, authorities received a tip that he was going to be traveling for a doctor's appointment on November 25th. After 4 years of dead ends, detectives finally had actionable information about Singh's whereabouts. Delhi police coordinated with Australian authorities for a carefully planned operation. On November 25, 2022, officers positioned themselves near a Sikh Gurdwara in New Delhi. As Singh arrived for what he believed would be a routine medical appointment, police moved in. After 1,160 days on the run, Rajwinder Singh was finally in custody. Family friend Wayne Trimble told reporters, This part of the story is the closest to the end it's ever been, and it's a good feeling, believe me. The arrest sent waves of relief through the Cairns community. People who had displayed "Justice for Toyah" bumper stickers for 4 years finally felt a glimmer of hope that their message had been heard. Singh's appearance had changed significantly in 4 years of hiding. He looked older, worn down by years of looking over his shoulder. But there was no mistaking the DNA match. This was the man whose genetic material had been found on Toyah's body and at the crime scene. Singh had earlier waived his right to challenge the extradition order, telling reporters in New Delhi, "I want to go back. It is the Indian judicial system that has been holding things up." "I did not kill the woman," he said, adding he wanted to reveal all the details to an Australian court. Whether his decision to waive extradition proceedings was strategic or driven by exhaustion from years of hiding remained unclear. But it meant one thing: he was coming back to face justice in Australia. Queensland police later confirmed the $1 million reward had been paid to a number of people. The decision to honor the reward demonstrated the government's commitment to justice for Toyah and sent a message to anyone else contemplating fleeing justice. You cannot hide forever. In March 2023, Rajwinder Singh was formally charged with Toyah Cordingley's murder. The long wait for a trial began. The verdict followed a retrial, with DNA and circumstantial evidence key to the prosecution's case. Singh's first trial, held in early 2024, ended after days of jury deliberations in a hung jury. A devastating setback for Toyah's family, who had waited so long for this moment. But prosecutors were undeterred. They prepared for a retrial, refining their case and strengthening their evidence presentation. The second trial began in November 2025 at Cairns Supreme Court, presided over by Justice Lincoln Crowley. For 4 weeks, more than 70 witnesses gave evidence, painting a comprehensive picture of that October afternoon in 2018 and the investigation that followed. Crown Prosecutor Nathan Crane methodically presented the case against Singh. The circumstantial evidence had to be considered together. DNA found on a stick covering Toyah's body that was 3.7 billion times more likely to belong to Singh, his flight from Australia, and the movements of her phone matching his car. The DNA under Toyah's fingernails, almost perfectly matching Singh's profile, placed him at the scene during her desperate fight for life. Singh's defense team argued that the evidence was circumstantial, that Singh had simply encountered masked men at the beach who were the true killers. But the killer had given no explanation how his DNA ended up under her fingernails and on the stick when he claimed he saw 2 masked killers from far enough away that they were unable to chase him down. The story strained credibility. The prosecution presented evidence of Singh's movements after the murder. His immediate booking of a one-way flight to India. His abandonment of his family. His 4 years in hiding despite claiming innocence. Justice Crowley later said Singh's decision to remain overseas prolonged the anguish of those who loved Toyah and prolonged the administration of justice. After closing arguments, the jury of 9 men and 3 women retired to deliberate. For 7 agonizing hours, Toyah's family waited in the courthouse, holding hands, praying, hoping that this time justice would be served. After about 7 hours of deliberations, the jury delivered its unanimous verdict: guilty of murder. The moment the verdict was read, emotion erupted in the courtroom. As per ABC, Cordingley's father was heard saying, "Rot in hell, you bastard," while Singh sat motionless in the dock. 7 years of anguish, frustration, and grief poured out in that single moment. Vanessa Gardner wept, Marco Heidenreich collapsed into the arms of family members. The relief was overwhelming. Justice had finally arrived for Toyah Cordingley. The following day, December 9th, 2025, Justice Crowley sentenced Singh to life in prison with a non-parole period of 25 years, 5 years longer than the mandatory minimum. Justice Crowley described the crime as an opportunistic killing and a violent, brutal attack. He noted that the evidence pointed to a shocking and sickening act of violence, likely triggered when Cordingley confronted him over behavior of a sexual and perverted nature. Singh's decision to take Cordingley's phone, Crowley said, raised the possibility that she may have recorded Singh or intended to report what she saw. Toyah's final act may have been one of courage, confronting inappropriate behavior and attempting to document it, which cost her everything. Justice Crowley told the court Singh's decision to remain overseas prolonged the anguish of those who loved Toyah and prolonged the administration of justice. Throughout the trial, Singh was described as a competent nurse who was well respected by colleagues. However, Justice Crowley said the evidence showed there was a deeper, darker side to him. Outside the Cairns Supreme Court after sentencing, Toyah's family faced the media with a mixture of relief and ongoing grief. Vanessa Gardner said, "This event turned our world upside down for years, and we all know a special part of our fun, tight-knit family is now gone forever." She remembered her daughter as a lovable, innocent, full-of-life young woman, and said the family would never forgive Singh. She also acknowledged the wider circle of harm, including Toyah's former partner Marco Heidenreich and Singh's own wife and children. "There are multiple victims in this," she said. Toyah Cordingley's statement captured both the satisfaction of justice and the permanence of loss. Today's verdict has delivered a form of justice, but for us, it can never be true justice. The world was a poorer place without Toyah. The impact of Toyah's case extended far beyond her immediate family. The case reached far beyond a single victim and into a national reckoning with how often women's safety depends on navigating male emotions and actions as a matter of survival. Toyah's murder sparked conversations about violence against women, about the vulnerability women face even in public spaces during daylight hours, and about the importance of never giving up on justice. The $1 million reward that brought Singh to justice demonstrated that some lives are worth fighting for indefinitely. The persistence of Queensland police, who never closed the case despite years of Singh hiding overseas, showed that justice delayed doesn't have to mean justice denied. For the community of Far North Queensland, Toyah's case became a rallying cry. The bumper stickers that called for justice for years have now been replaced with memorials celebrating her life. The Paws and Claws Refuge, where she worked, continues to rescue animals in her memory. Friends and family established animal welfare initiatives in Toyah's name, ensuring that her passion for helping defenseless creatures lives on. Wangetti Beach, once a place of peace for Toyah, has been reclaimed by those who love her. Memorials appear there on anniversaries of her death, with flowers, photos, and messages celebrating the vibrant young woman whose life was stolen too soon. The beach is no longer just a crime scene. It's a place of remembrance, of resilience, and of community solidarity. Rajwinder Singh will spend the next 25 years behind bars. Minimum. He is now 41 years old. If he serves the full non-parole period, he will be 66 years old before he can even be considered for release. For someone who fled justice and lived freely for 4 years while Toyah's family suffered, this sentence represents a measure of accountability that once seemed impossible. The children Singh abandoned when he fled to India have grown up without their father. His wife, who knew nothing of his crime, lost her home and her life as she knew it. Vanessa Gardner acknowledged Singh's wife and children as collateral damage from this man's actions. His decision to murder Toyah Cordingley destroyed not just her family, but his own as well. Today, Toyah's legacy lives on in the hearts of everyone who knew her and in the broader impact her case has had on discussions about women's safety. Her colorful hair, her infectious laughter, her gentle way with animals, her kindness to strangers, these are what people remember. Not the horror of how she died, but the beauty of how she lived. As family friend David County said at her funeral, "The love, the laughter, the joy, these are the memories we want to keep forever, not the bad ones." That sentiment has guided her family through 7 years of unimaginable pain. Justice for Toyah Cordingley came slowly, but it came completely. A killer who thought he could escape by fleeing halfway around the world learned that some crimes cannot be outrun. A community that refused to forget ensured that Toyah's name remained at the forefront of the public consciousness until justice was served. And on a remote beach in far North Queensland, where the waves still crash and the palm trees still sway, Toyah Cordingley's spirit endures, a reminder that even the darkest acts cannot extinguish the light of a life well lived, or the power of a community determined to seek justice for one of their own. Her story is a tragedy, yes, but it's also a testament to persistence, to the unbreakable bonds of family, and to the truth that justice, however delayed, can still prevail. Toyah may be gone, but she will never be forgotten. And the world, as her father said, will always be poorer without her, but also richer for having known her at all.
If this case gripped you, don't forget to like and subscribe for more true crime.